Hey guys, it's John Callan from KVI Motorsport, and this is the Contact Patch Podcast, where the rubber meets the road. We're going to be answering some viewer questions today. Technically speaking, not all of them are generated from our YouTube channel. There are some questions that we're able to draw from our daily life, and we'd like to answer some of them today for this episode. If you guys have any questions that you want answered, please feel free to write on the comments what you want to ask, and it may be featured in a future episode of the Contact Patch podcast. With that said, let us first thank our sponsor for this episode of the Contact Patch podcast, and we shall proceed the questions from Facebook and from YouTube. Today's episode sponsor is KVI Quiklube, and the featured product today of KVI Quiklube is Kone Sport Performance Hub Centering Rings. So you may ask, what is a hub centering ring? A hub centering ring is usually used in aftermarket wheels. When you put in aftermarket wheels in a car, usually the aftermarket wheel manufacturer oversizes the wheel center bore. That's the hole in the middle of the wheel in which surrounds the lug holes. Alright, OEM wheels have a center bore that's exactly matched to the axle hub surface of the brakes. This ensures adequate fitment and elimination of high-speed wheel vibration. When you put aftermarket wheels, that hub surface is rendered useless, and there is a good tendency for you to experience high-speed wheel vibration issues. For SUVs, it usually starts at 80 and ends at 120 kilometers per hour. Usually, those are expressway speeds that everyone wants to travel at. It is sometimes a bother or a worry for people who swap to aftermarket wheels to experience this issue. So, to solve that, Kone Sport Performance offers hub centering rings to adequately mount the wheel properly to the axle hub surface of the car. And that usually resolves high-speed wheel vibration issues with aftermarket wheels for most popular cars and SUVs in the market, in the Philippine market today. And if Kone Sport Performance does not have it on hand, or it is an application it does not support with stock, Kone Sport Performance accepts custom orders. If you have that weird Japanese wheel with a weird spec, or if you have an uncommon tuner car or an uncommon SUV with uncommon axle setup and whatnot, Kone Sport Performance is still your best bet in order for you to get the right wheel fitment for your car. And KVI Quiklube can help you facilitate your needs as a premium dealer of Kone Sport Performance products. So again, you may check out Kone Sport Performance Direct with their Facebook page, facebook.com/Kone, that's with a K, Kone. So that's Kone Sport dot performance. And you can also message KVI Quiklube directly for your tires, wheels, batteries, and lubricant needs in the Sucat Parañaque area. Facebook page is facebook.com/kvi.quiklube. Once again, we thank KVI Quiklube for their support for this episode of the Contact Patch podcast. Thank you to our sponsor for supporting the Contact Patch podcast, where the rubber meets the road. Again, this is Jahan Kalam, and now we're going to be answering some questions from the studio audience, so to speak. Alright, first question comes from Mr. D. Mr. D asks, and this is from Facebook. I want to swap a 4G63T in my Lancer Sync kit. I want more performance but maintain the fuel economy of my existing 4G13 carburetor engine. Will I get the same fuel economy with the 4G63 swap? Alright, okay. The context of this is I'm selling some random 4G63 Evo 4 parts. Like things that I don't need, I'm disposing. The things that I need, I'm keeping. Um, and so this guy messaged me on Facebook asking for the whole engine. First of all, I don't have a whole engine of a 4G63 to sell. Uh, I'm actually trying to acquire another 4G63 engine for another project. But anyway, I don't really have parts for him because the Evo 4 engine and the engine that he needs for his sync kit is going to be mounted on the opposite way. Because the Evo 4 engine, the engine is on the passenger side. If you are in a left-hand drive country like the Philippines, the engine of an Evo 4 is on the passenger side. The transmission is on the driver's side. While for the older Transverse 4G63s, the engine is on the driver's side. And the transmission is on the passenger side. For the sync kit, the sync kit is I don't know what code generation of Lancer it is. I don't know. Like for the Evos, there's a CN9A, CP9A. I don't know what chassis code is a sync kit, but it's in the Philippines. The Lancers that we have, we give them funny nicknames. So the Evo 4 to 6 bodied Lancer, we call that the pizza pie because of the taillights. It's like a pizza shaped, right? The one before that, we called it the Lancer Itlog. That's the Evo 1 to 3 body. Okay? Just for our international guys to understand our Philippine nomenclature of the Lancer platform, right? So we call the Evo 1 to 3 body the Itlog. And the one before that, I don't know what you call that in the US or in Japan or whatever, but due to the shape of the headlights, we call that Lancer the Lancer Singkit, meaning chinky eyes. I'm sorry if that sounds racist, but that's what Singkit means in if translated to English from Filipino. Right? So the Lancer Singkit is what he has. Platform-wise, is very similar to, let's say, the Galant GTI. We have a version of the Galant called the GTI. It's the GTI body. That is equivalent to the Galant VR4 sold in the US for 2 years, 1991, 1992. So that generation Galant and the Singkit Lancer is, you can say, platform mates in a sense, right? And the Singkit originally had a serious family engine. So it had the 4G61. So the 4G61 is a 1.6 version of the 4G63. Okay, and I believe that there was a turbo version of that platform, of that engine fitted to the Singkit body. So the best fit for G63 to fit on a sync kit is the older one. You can say in American nomenclature, it's the 1G and 2G generation 4G63 DSM motor. Alright? So that's the best fit, not the Evo 4 and up. Of course, everything is possible. You can always mount the Evo 4 to 9 orientation engine to whatever car you want, and that's what we did with our Project Coupe all-wheel drive. But if you're just going to rely on common parts and also know the availability of an appropriate front-wheel drive transmission is very readily available with the older generation 4G63. Because the later generation 4G63 is extremely difficult to find a front-wheel drive manual transmission. The only available locally released model with a manual transmission that you could source from is the Galant Shark, or what we call the Galant Pating. in the Philippines. So that is 2 generations after the Galant VR4 or Galant GTI body. All right, that manual transmission is compatible with the Evo style blocks. Right. So the best bet for this guy, Mr. D, is to just look for a 4G63 from a Galant GTI and then turbo it or whatever. Modify it appropriately for turbocharging. That's, I guess, the cheapest entryway. And initially, he could just stay on turbo, and then if he really requires more performance, he can turbo it later. Because 4G63 twin cam engines from the GTI they're not exactly common, but people are parting out Galant GTIs in the Philippines. So the engine can be sourced uh, relatively affordably with all the parts needed for the swap. Uh, I would go that route rather than going straight to turbo, especially with this guy's concern of fuel consumption that he wants to maintain similar or the same fuel consumption as his existing 4G13 carburetor engine. If I'm not mistaken, the 4G13 is 1.3 liters. It's carbureted. It's a tiny, tiny engine. Single cam, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, from 1.3 liters to 2 liters, definitely you're never, never, never going to get the same fuel economy. The more displacement that you have, the more it's gonna consume, right? Whatever you do. So this is kind of a silly question that you want to increase your your performance, and yet at the same time you value fuel economy. My advice to the guy is, if you really want to maintain the car, you want to preserve the car and be able to drive it and enjoy it, maybe enjoy it as a stock car. But if you're really antsy to modify it, maybe swap into a modern engine, right? The cheap modern engine to swap, really my recommendation is, if you don't want to be, if you're not brand conscious, you can always go with the Toyota 1NZ engine from the Vios. Right? I love those engines. They're power dense, meaning for the power they produce, they're pretty light. As compare, you get a bump up 200cc from 1.3 to 1.5, and it'll be fuel injected, and you will feel the improvement of performance and also feel an improvement in your fuel consumption, because it's a more modern engine, very well designed by Toyota to become an economy style engine. So I really highly recommend the one in Z swap to a lot of the guys who want to modernize their old cars. But if you're a purist, perhaps one from the expander, but that's gonna be crazy expensive right now, even as a surplus or a part out. Maybe an engine from the Mirage, but that's just a three-cylinder 1.2 that might not be very fast, but it will definitely be more fuel efficient than your 4G13. With that said, my end recommendation is, really decide what you really want to do, allot the budget for it, and just do it. But if you're thinking you're gonna hit two birds with one stone with a 4G63 swap, you want to get more power fuel economy, you're never gonna get it. That's foolhardy. I just suggest just keep your car stock. It's hard enough to keep a car maintained, to be honest, and to keep it in premium proper condition. I really suggest you just make the effort to preserve your car, maintain it as stock, and maybe buy another project car or just buy a Vios, right? Play with the Vios. Going beyond the Honda Civics, of course, that's always an option. Go for a Honda. But if you're really a Mitsubishi guy, I don't know, play with the Mirage. The Mirage is also a nice platform to play around with. Not a lot of power potential, but at least it's a newer car. And probably something that you could afford. on installment or hulugan basis. So my recommendation, just buy a new car. I'm not really the right guy to ask whether you should modify your car or not, because I'll say, yeah, why not? But practicality concerns, if practicality is paramount, I really suggest just keep your car stock. And if you want to fool around with the car, fool around with the car that you won't have too much sentimental value. How you learn how to work on a car is to break it, break it, break it. But if you have a car for preservation, just preserve it. So, sir, no need to touch your sink kit. Just maintain it. If you really say it's as pristine as it is, just maintain it, enjoy it, pass it on to the next generation in the future when you're bored with it or you pass away. Just preserve it. People will appreciate it for what it is. No need to modify it to 4G63. Unless that's what you really want, then it's up to you. But don't expect fuel consumption to be the same as your 4G13. That's asinine. Alright? Okay, next question, guys. This is from YouTube. He asked several questions, but I am combining it all. This is from Mr. V. Mr. V writes, my car is a Hyundai Trajet or Trajet. I don't know how you pronounce that one. We don't have the Hyundai Trajet in the Philippines. If I'm not mistaken, it's like an MPV style vehicle. My car is a Hyundai Trajet with a DOHC 2.0 engine. I believe it's the G4JP engine. And I read that the G4JP engine is the same as the Mitsubishi Evo's 4G63. Is that true? If so, can the parts from the 4G63 engine be installed on the G4JP engine, like the piston, connecting rod, and intake manifold? My power goal is 350 horsepower, and is the stock G4JP internals, can they hold up to the amount of that amount of power? Can I just use the original G4JP head and intake manifold, but with modification like port and polish, and be able to install the turbo? Alright, Mr. V, that's several questions that you've asked on YouTube. Right? Thank you for asking, and this is in response to our video of Project Coupe all-wheel drive when we swapped in, among other things, engine block from G4JP and adapted it to the Evo for stuff like the head and all that jazz, right? All right. If I had a car that's already running a G4JP, all right, we're not going to do all the crazy modifications and adaptations that we did in order for us to mount the G4JP block as part of an Evo package and put it in a coupe RD chassis. Alright, it does not bolt on. Nothing bolts on in that car as far as the engine supports and whatnot is concerned. Nothing bolts on. So everything for us was head scratcher. It was adaptation, customization, fabrication, and not. You with the Hyundai Trajet with already the engine running fine, right? You don't have to go through so much modification. You just want to turbo the car. My advice is just get the necessary Evo stuff that would bolt on. So the Evo 4 to 9 turbo manifold will bolt on. Your problem is one oil lines, right, to mount it. Water lines easy, so you just get from the throttle body and just lay. That's easy. Just lay some hoses to the throttle body towards the turbo and whatever. Okay, oil lines is the problem. There's a fitting on the cylinder head that you attach the turbo oil feed line to. Right, that is blank on the Hyundai head. So either you have it machined, which is a lot of effort, or just get an oil sandwich plate, oil filter sandwich plate, where you can put a fitting to plumb your oil feed line to your turbo. Just make custom lines, and then oil drain. Just drill, something. Well, install a bung at the bottom. So that's it. That's basically it. So turbo side done. Okay, and then of course you're gonna make an exhaust. Intake manifold, no need to change. Of course, definitely change the fuel injectors. I don't know if the Evo injectors will work on the fuel rail of the G4JP, but if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the same injector, so I might work. The thing you have to do, you have to notice if you're gonna use the Evo stuff, that's a low impedance injector. The Sonata or the Trajet one is a high impedance, so you have to use resistor blocks to make the injectors work. But intake manifold, I don't think you have to modify anything on that one. Okay, when it comes to internals, the G4JP is a high compression engine. It has a 10 to 1 compression ratio. So, as compared to the Evo, if I'm not mistaken, the Evo is 8.5, 8.9, something like that. It's a lower compression because it's turbocharged, right? You may get away with the higher compression, especially with the low boost. If you're just gonna do 8 psi wastegate pressure, but your goal is 350 horsepower. So if it's crank horsepower, that's for front wheel drive car. I don't know if you have a manual or an automatic, but let's say you have a manual, right? Because an automatic opens another can of worms because it may not last. You have to modify the transmission somehow to sustain the 300 horsepower. That's not within my wheelhouse, so I'm not gonna comment on the automatic transmission modification. But for 350 horsepower, that's a lot of horsepower for MPV or like a minivan type of car, right? 300. Actually, that's my goal. Actually, to hit 300 at the wheels, four-wheel drive. With 17 psi, that's possible. But with 17 psi and with stock internals, that is very doubtful, right? You don't have to change your connecting rod. For this, you can maintain the existing connecting rod, but you should get the pistons from just get pistons from an Evo 5 to 9, and they should not be difficult to source. Just get OEM ones or nice used OEM ones. You don't have to go forged. And as far as internals concerned, you should be dead set. So if you want to do modifications to your head, like port and polish, that's up to you. But to be honest, based on expert opinion, 4G63 head, even a Sonata head, it's still a 4G63 head, right? Even if it's the G4JP, it's basically same head, right? The difference with the G4JP head is basically the valve cover mounting, because the G4JP uses a different valve cover. But for your power, you don't even need cams. So don't have to worry about cam gears. You don't have to worry about, well, cams will work. Evo 4 cams and Sonata cams are interchangeable. But they're different, but they're interchangeable. So you can upgrade to the Evo cams if you have excess money, but even then, you don't have to worry about that one also. But for your power goals, it's just turbo, proper fueling, pistons, and tuning, proper tuning. And I'm assuming you're gonna go standalone for this one, or just approach a tuner in your area or your country that you're confident about doing your project. It's not difficult. Good luck to you, and don't have to complicate too much. You don't have to do the oiling mods that we've done, like the Tomei baffle and the Kigley Racing oil restrictor. Those things are nice to haves, but for street car, you don't really need them. Again, the 4G63 engines are built like a brick house, right? They're built very powerfully. 300 horsepower is nothing, so that's why we're very confident in our car. And when it gets finally running sweet, we're gonna be very confident on the reliability and durability of our engine, even though it's on an elevated power level. So much the same with the G4JP engine of your Trajet. So good luck to you with your plans, and hopefully you really are able to do it. Okay, so the final question is, it comes from Mr. E. He's my Facebook friend. Mr. E writes, I saw you join a slalom race with your MGZS. How do I join? What are the requirements? How are we classified in the race based on our driving skill and based on the vehicles that we're going to use? because it will be my first time and I will be using a Lancer EX GTA. Can two drivers share one race car? Thank you, Mr. E, for the question. And I'm very glad to try to welcome new racers or returning racers to grassroots motorsport in the Philippines. And I'm glad that you saw us race, or at least saw us in a publicity material for slalom racing. And one comment is all my questions are Mitsubishi related, right? Lancer Syncit, Lancer GTA, 4G63 stuff, right? So I don't know. This is the Mitsubishi question and answer segment, I guess. And I guess these are the questions that I pulled, and I never meant it to be Mitsubishi centric or something to that effect, right? Anyway, that's the luck of the draw. Um, okay, how do I join? Basically, just go and join, right? Bring your car. Go. I find out first the schedule of. Let's focus on slalom because basically in general, you best to inquire direct from the organizer directly. Okay, for any and all questions, and they will be best to answer questions. But of course, if you're a newbie, it's nice to have a friend who's actively racing or participating, or at the very least has experience joining. It would be nice to tag him along, bring him with you to the race, right? And then he can really help you. At least at the first instance, hold your hand in a sense. But it's not so difficult to do so, but it's nice to have a friend, right? So my friend has also asked me this question, and hopefully I'm able to hold his hand on this one. If not in person, at least by via my responses. But at least the very least, you can inquire from the organizer. Ask them if you can pay in advance online, or you pay direct in the venue itself. Certain organizers prefer advance registration. I think increasingly that is going to be the case. Advance registration, advance payment. With autocross is that way. With other organizers, they have a discounted offer when you pay in advance, and then when you pay on site, it's more expensive than if you pay in advance and online. So it's really nice to talk to the organizer before you actually go to the venue itself. So at least if you can pay already, might as well pay already to save on, at least get a discount, right? Then second of all is of course having a car that's suited for the motorsport that you're wanting to join. So if it's grassroots like slalom, again focusing on slalom, you don't need a modified car. Your stock car is fine. I proved it with my MGZS. My car is stock. I use it every day. It has nice aircon. It's comfortable. It's a stock car with a warranty and all that. Even if it's Chinese, it seems to be dead reliable. I've run 24,000 kilometers already on that car. Uh, some of it racing, but the vast majority is just driving on the street, and I'm very happy with the car. It's a stock car, no particular modification to it. Just race whatever car you have, right? Just make sure it's in good condition. Battery is tied down well, secured well. That's one major fault that a lot of people miss, that the battery is not properly affixed on the battery tray. So make sure that your car battery is properly fastened, either using the OEM brackets, um, or there are aftermarket battery tie downs that are cheap to buy. It can be found in a lot of auto supplies, and you can just figure out how to mount your battery well. The quick and dirty way, what we did for our MGZS, because we upgraded the battery to 2SM, and so the stock battery mounts don't work anymore. We ratchet strap the battery to the battery tray, and it's okay, and it will pass. Make sure seat belts are in good condition, no leaks on the engine and whatnot. There are no leaks, no smells. But if you have relatively new car, 3, 4, 5 year old car, you should be able to pass with no issues. Make sure brakes work, obviously. As far as the driver, you just need a helmet, right? That's all. That's all you need. If you don't know anything, you don't know, you're a newbie, it's okay, just go. Approach the organizer, tell them you need basic instruction. You will receive basic instruction, and either um, people from the organizer will help you out, or even fellow competitors sometimes will help you out. And that has happened to me in Japan, as recently as my last race in Japan, right? I had Kaloy Mr. Kaloy Moreno guide me around the course, which is pretty nice of him. I don't know if even though you can say I'm experienced and whatnot, but at least it's nice to have to talk to your fellow competitors and discuss how to tackle certain things. At least it makes the learning process much faster. And don't be afraid to talk to fellow competitors, right? Even though they're not your friends. The vast majority of my fellow competitors over the years are very, very helpful, and they would give you very nice general advice. If you're really, really serious, you'll probably need a mentor or a coach. But that's for every sport, right? If you really are serious, you wanna, well, not necessarily be a pro in Philippine motorsport, because there's very minimal to almost impossible that you could be a pro in local racing. But if you're really serious, you really try to seek mentorship and or coaching. But if you're starting out, just try. You don't need to worry about that one. You don't need to win. You're not going to win initially. But if you're really starting out as a new guy, you're not gonna win. You're going to go there to learn and enjoy. You're gonna use a Lancer EX GTA. That's perfectly fine. If it's an automatic, perfectly fine. Probably even better to start out with, because it's easy, just gas or brake, right? Two drivers can share one race car. I've seen that happen, and that was done in Japan also. When I went to Japan, a father and son did that. So that's not a problem. Even three people can share one race car, whatever. At least in slalom, right? How are we classified as drivers and vehicles? So of course you're classified due to your skill level. So there's the newbie. So there's a special class for you if you're a newbie's class. And then once you graduate from that, you'll probably graduate from that very quickly, depending on the organizer. And then after you graduate from that one very quickly, you'll be a novice driver. I am a novice driver. I'm rated as a novice driver, in at least in this organizer in Slalom. Actually, for every organizer, I'm rated as a novice. So doesn't matter, right? Because if you are able to win a championship, or you're consistently placing very well in the championship, you will be upgraded to experienced. But there are very few people upgraded to experience. Basically, those who are the previous year's champions, class champions, they're upgraded to experience. But for me, for the number of years I've been racing, I'm still a novice. So thankfully, um, but there are a lot of great novices, to be honest. So that's as far as drivers are concerned, right? So it's basically your skill level. Now, vehicles is actually the more difficult question, because in slalom, at least, I'm talking about slalom, they have a class they try to fit you. There's a class for every car, basically. There's an ass for every seat, so to speak. So if you have a front wheel drive car, basically stock, you'll be a novice stock. Basically, you'll be a stock category, and then there will be a subcategory depending on your engine displacement. So usually A, B, and C displacement brackets is engines up to 1,600, 1,600 to 2 liter, and 2 liter up. Below 1,600 is A, 1,600 to 2 liter is B, and then 2 liter up is C. If you have a turbocharged car, let's say you have a 1 liter turbo. What's a 1 liter turbo car? Is it I don't know what's a 1 liter turbo car locally sold. I think there's some China car that's like a 1 liter turbo. Yeah. Let's say the MGZS has a turbo version, right? It's a 1.3 turbo. So you're not going to be in the one. You're not going to be classified in the A category, the below 1600, because you have a turbo. There is a multiplication factor involved when it comes to turbocharged cars. So that's usually 1.5. I don't know in slalom. I think it's 1.5. So 1.3 times 1.5, very roughly with my mental math, 650. 1300 plus 650 is basically 1950. So you're basically on category B, if I'm not mistaken. So you're not eligible for the A category, A displacement restriction, right? You'll be in B or C. You're allowed uh, to join in displacement categories higher than your actual displacement, but you're not allowed to go lower. What drivetrain you have? So if you're a front wheel drive or rear wheel drive usually has a separate category. Front wheel drive is a separate category, rear wheel drive is a separate category, and then they all mash up together if you're basically a modified. There is a category that could be any drivetrain. There's also category if your car's modified or not. If you're running a stock car, you're on a stock category. Running a modified car, there are various categories that slot that. So there's a general modified category, and then there's some other esoteric stuff to slalom that I don't understand. That I have to visit the rule book to understand what is Pro 1A, 2A, 2C, all those whatever Clubman, Pro Stock, whatever. I do that. Those things are inherent to slalom, and those are the quirks of it. But you don't have to worry about that too much. You can have the organizer classify you appropriately. They will ask you the relevant questions and they will class you accordingly as per their rule book, right? So just approach the organizer on race day itself, have them inspect your car, and they will class you accordingly. And make sure that your safety equipment, the minimal safety stuff that I mentioned, is up to snuff, and you should be all right. And finally, the most important thing when you join is to enjoy. Just enjoy the experience. Don't crash your car. Don't get into a red mist. Right? You're not even if you crash your car, it's relatively safe because slalom is relatively low speeds. But even then, you don't want to destroy your car or break your car or damage your car. So just take it easy, enjoy the experience, ask from your fellow competitors, ask from the organizers, ask. Do not be shy and expressing that you do not know anything because, alright, so don't worry about looking like an ignorant person. It's okay to look like you're ignorant, but it's not alright to stay being ignorant, right? Enjoy, have fun, and hopefully this year, I'll see you in the next race. Thank you for these questions, guys. I guess that's it. I talked too much. The raw recording says I've been talking for 45 minutes. Of course, this will be edited down. Uh, I don't know how short this will be, but I think I answered a lot of these questions in depth, and I'm looking forward to answer more questions from you guys. So please feel free to leave a comment uh, on our YouTube in this video or in other videos. Any questions that you may have. It may be featured on a future installment of the Contact Patch podcast. If you're shy, you can always direct message us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is KHL Motorsport / Kuhol Garage. Facebook.com/Kuhol Garage. Alright, hit us up on Facebook, PM us there. Um, but if you do ask us questions, that you reserve the right for us to use your question on a future episode of the Contact Patch podcast. Anyway, guys, that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening to this, and hope to see you guys on the next episode of the Contact Patch podcast, where the rubber meets the road. Thank you guys so much. Ciao.